The rain was falling hard that Tuesday night. Sarah Williams drove her old Honda slowly down the empty highway. Her windshield wipers moved back and forth, trying to clear the water that kept coming down. She was tired. Very tired. She had just finished working 16 hours at the county hospital where she worked as a nurse. Sarah's body hurt. Her feet were sore from standing all day. Her back ached from lifting patients and moving heavy equipment. But she could not complain. She needed this job. She needed every dollar she could earn. Her mother was sick and the medicine cost so much money. The doctor said her mother needed surgery soon or she might get worse. At 28 years old, Sarah was the only person taking care of her mother. Her father had died when she was just 16. Since then, it had been just Sarah and her mother, fighting to survive together. Sarah worked double shifts whenever she could. She worked weekends. She worked holidays. She never said no when the hospital called and asked her to work extra hours. As Sarah drove through the storm, she thought about her mother waiting at home. Mrs. Williams had diabetes and it was getting worse every year. The insulin shots cost $300 every month. The special food cost even more. Sarah's small apartment was not fancy, but it was clean and safe. It was all she could afford on a nurse's salary. The radio in Sarah's car was playing soft music. She liked to listen to music when she drove. It helped her relax after long days at work. Tonight she was listening to old songs that her father used to play when she was a little girl. The songs made her feel close to him, even though he had been gone for so many years. Suddenly, through the heavy rain, Sarah saw something on the side of the road. Car headlights were flashing. Someone was in trouble. Sarah slowed down and looked carefully. She could see a big, expensive car stopped on the shoulder of the highway. Steam was coming up from under the hood. A tall man in a nice suit was standing next to the car, getting soaked by the rain. Most people would have kept driving. It was late at night. The storm was dangerous. The area was empty and dark. But Sarah's mother had always taught her to help people when they needed help. If you can help someone, you should help them, her mother always said. That's how we make the world better. Sarah pulled her car over and stopped behind the broken car. She rolled down her window and called out to the man. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The man looked surprised that someone had stopped. He walked over to Sarah's car, holding his hands over his head to block the rain. He was tall and well-dressed, but he looked worried and frustrated. "My car just died," the man said. His voice was deep and kind. "The engine got too hot and now it won't start. I've been trying to call for help, but my phone has no signal out here." Sarah looked at the man's car. It was a black Mercedes-Benz, very expensive and shiny. Even in the rain, she could tell it cost more money than she made in 2 years. The man's suit looked expensive too. His shoes were leather and looked new. He was clearly rich, but right now he was just another person who needed help. "Let me take a look," Sarah said. She turned off her car and got out into the rain. The man stared at her in surprise. "You don't have to do that. You'll get all wet." Sarah was already walking toward his car. "I'm already wet," she said with a smile. "Besides, I know a little bit about cars." This was true. Sarah's father had been a mechanic before he got sick. When Sarah was young, he had taught her how cars worked. He showed her how to check the oil, how to change a tire, and how to fix simple problems. "Every person should know basic things about cars," he used to tell her. "You never know when this knowledge might help you or someone else." Sarah lifted the hood of the Mercedes. Steam poured out and she could smell the hot metal. She looked at the engine carefully, using the light from her phone to see better. The man stood next to her, holding an umbrella over both of them. "What's your name?" Sarah asked as she examined the engine. "Marcus," the man said. "Marcus Thompson. Thank you so much for stopping. I can't believe someone actually stopped to help." "I'm Sarah," she replied, still looking at the engine. "And helping people is just the right thing to do." Sarah found the problem quickly. One of the rubber hoses that carried water to cool the engine had burst. Hot water had leaked out, causing the engine to overheat and shut down. It was not a terrible problem, but it needed to be fixed before the car could run again. "I think I can help you," Sarah told Marcus. "The radiator hose is broken. I have some supplies in my car that might work to fix it temporarily. Marcus looked, confused. You carry car repair supplies? Sarah laughed. My car is 15 years old. It breaks down sometimes. I learned to carry emergency supplies so I don't get stuck somewhere. Sarah went back to her Honda and opened the trunk. Inside, she had a small toolbox, a roll of strong tape, a jug of water, and other emergency supplies. She always kept these things in her car because she could not afford to pay for expensive tow trucks or emergency repairs. As Sarah worked on Marcus's car, they talked. Marcus told her he was rushing to an important business meeting the next morning. The meeting was in the next city, and he needed to be there early. Sarah told him she was a nurse at the county hospital. She mentioned that she had been working extra shifts to save money for her mother's medical care. Your mother is lucky to have a daughter like you, Marcus said, watching Sarah work in the rain. She raised me to care about other people, Sarah replied. She taught me that we should always help when we can, even when it's hard. Marcus felt something strange in his chest as he listened to Sarah talk. Here was a woman who was clearly tired from a long day of work, driving an old car, wearing scrubs that had seen better days, but she had stopped to help a complete stranger without thinking twice about it. She was getting soaked by the rain, getting her hands dirty, and using her own supplies to help him. After 30 minutes of careful work, Sarah managed to patch the broken hose with her tape and tools. She filled the radiator with water from her emergency jug. The temporary repair would not last forever, but it would get Marcus to his destination. Try starting it now, Sarah said, wiping her wet hands on a towel. Marcus got into his car and turned the key. The engine started perfectly. He could not believe it. This kind nurse had fixed his expensive car with basic supplies and knowledge. This is amazing, Marcus said, getting out of the car. How much do I owe you? Sarah was already packing up her tools. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad I could help. Please let me pay you something. You've saved my entire business deal. No payment needed, Sarah said firmly. Just promise me you'll help someone else when you get the chance. As Sarah closed her trunk and prepared to leave, Marcus noticed something that made his heart stop. In the light from the car headlights, he could see Sarah's hands clearly for the first time. On her right hand, she wore a simple gold ring with a small pattern carved into it. Marcus stared at that ring, and suddenly he felt like he could not breathe. He knew that ring. He remembered that exact ring from a long time ago. It was a ring he had not seen for 25 years, but he would never forget it. It was a ring that belonged to someone very special from his childhood, someone he had never stopped thinking about. Could it really be her? After all these years, Marcus stood in the rain, staring at the ring on Sarah's finger. His mind was racing. That ring looked exactly like one he remembered from long ago, but it could not be possible. After 25 years, what were the chances? Are you okay? Sarah asked, noticing that Marcus had become very quiet. You look like you've seen a ghost. Marcus shook his head quickly. I'm sorry. I'm just amazed that you fixed my car. I can't believe how kind you are. Sarah smiled and closed the trunk of her Honda. My father always said that we should help each other. When I was little, our neighbors helped us many times. When my father got sick, people brought us food. When he died, the whole neighborhood came to help my mother. I learned that kindness is the most important thing in life. As Sarah talked, Marcus studied her face more carefully. Even in the dim light and rain, there was something familiar about her. The way she smiled, the gentle way she spoke, the caring look in her eyes. But 25 years was a long time. People change. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. Where are you from originally? Marcus asked, trying to sound casual. I've lived here my whole life, Sarah said. Well, except for a few years when I was very young. We lived on Maple Street for a while when I was about 8 or 9 years old. My grandmother lived there, and we stayed with her for 2 summers. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. Maple Street, that was where his grandmother lived. That was where he spent his childhood summers. Could this really be the same Sarah? That's interesting, Marcus said carefully. I used to visit my grandmother on Maple Street when I was a kid. Sarah looked at him with more interest. Really? What was your grandmother's name? Mrs. Rose Thompson. She lived in the big white house with the blue shutters. Sarah's eyes widened. Mrs. Thompson was your grandmother? I remember her. She was so sweet. She used to give me cookies and let me pick flowers from her garden. She had a grandson who visited every summer, but Wait. Sarah stopped talking and looked at Marcus more carefully. Even though he was much taller now and his face was different, something about his eyes seemed familiar. What was your name back then? Sarah asked quietly. Marcus. Everyone called me Little Marcus because I was so short and skinny. Sarah put her hand over her mouth in surprise. Oh my goodness. Marcus? Little Marcus from next door? The boy who was afraid of dogs and loved to read books? Marcus smiled for the first time that night. And you're Sarah Williams, the girl who shared her lunch with me every day and taught me how to climb trees. They stood in the rain, looking at each other, in amazement. Two childhood friends who had not seen each other for 25 years had just met by accident on a dark highway. I cannot believe this, Sarah said, laughing and crying at the same time. What are the chances, out of all the roads, on all the nights, your car breaks down right where I happen to be driving? Marcus was thinking the same thing. I've wondered about you so many times over the years. When my family moved away, I tried to find you, but we didn't have your address. This was before email and social media. I always regretted that I never got to say goodbye properly. Sarah touched the ring on her finger. You gave me this ring the day before you left. Do you remember? You said it was so I would never forget our friendship. Marcus stared at the ring. Now he was completely sure. This was definitely his childhood friend Sarah, the girl who had been his best friend during the happiest summers of his childhood. You still wear it? Marcus asked, amazed. Every single day, Sarah said softly. It reminded me that there are good people in the world. During the hard times after my father died, when things were really difficult, I would look at this ring and remember how happy we were that summer. It gave me hope. Marcus felt emotions that he had not felt in years. As a successful businessman, he had learned to control his feelings, but standing here with Sarah, remembering their childhood friendship, he felt like that young boy again. Tell me about your life, Marcus said. What happened after I left? Sarah's expression became sadder. Well, a few months after you moved away, my father got very sick. Cancer. My mother spent all our savings trying to get him the best treatment, but nothing worked. He died when I was 16. I'm so sorry, Marcus said. Your father was such a good man. He taught me how to fix bicycles and how to throw a baseball. Yes, he was wonderful, Sarah agreed. After he died, money became very tight. My mother had to work 2 jobs just to pay the bills. I got good grades in school and received scholarships to several universities, but I couldn't leave my mother alone. She needed me. Marcus listened carefully as Sarah continued her story. She told him how she had worked part-time jobs throughout high school to help with expenses. She had dreamed of becoming a doctor, but nursing school was all they could afford. Even then, she had to work nights and weekends to pay for her education. I don't regret it, Sarah said quickly. I love being a nurse. I get to help people every day, and I've been able to take care of my mother. That's what matters most. Marcus felt ashamed as he listened to Sarah's story. While she had struggled and sacrificed for her family, his life had been very different. After his family moved away from Maple Street, his father had gotten a big promotion. They moved to a wealthy neighborhood. Marcus went to the best private schools, then to Harvard University. He had never worried about money or struggled to pay for anything. What about you? Sarah asked. What did you do after you moved away? Marcus hesitated. How could he tell her that he was now worth millions of dollars while she was working double shifts just to pay for her mother's medicine? How could he explain that the business meeting he was rushing to would make him even richer, while she was getting soaked in the rain helping him? I went into business, Marcus said simply. I was lucky. Things worked out well for me. Sarah smiled. I'm so happy to hear that. You were always smart, even as a kid. I remember you reading books that were meant for much older children. The rain was still falling, but neither of them seemed to notice anymore. They were too amazed by this incredible reunion. "Sarah," Marcus said carefully, "I want to help you. With your mother's medical bills, with everything. Please let me help." Sarah shook her head immediately. "That's very kind, but I can't accept help like that. We've managed this long and we'll continue to manage. But I have money now, more than I need. And you helped me tonight without asking for anything in return. I helped you because it was the right thing to do," Sarah said firmly. "Not because I wanted something back." Marcus realized that Sarah was still the same person she had been as a child. Kind, proud, and independent. She would rather struggle than take charity from anyone, even an old friend. "At least let me pay you for fixing my car," Marcus insisted. "Absolutely not," Sarah said, walking back toward her Honda. "I'm just happy I could help, and I'm amazed that we found each other again after all these years." As Sarah got into her car, Marcus realized he could not let her drive away without getting her contact information. He could not lose her again. "Sarah, wait," he called out. "Can I have your phone number? I want to stay in touch this time." Sarah rolled down her window and gave him her number. "I'd like that," she said. "It's wonderful to see you again, Marcus." As Sarah drove away into the night, Marcus stood beside his fixed car, watching her taillights disappear. He looked down at his phone where he had entered her number. After 25 years, he had found his dearest childhood friend again. But now he faced a difficult question. How could he tell her the truth about his wealth without making her feel bad about her own situation? And how could he find a way to help her family without hurting her pride? Marcus got into his Mercedes and started driving toward his hotel. Tomorrow's business meeting suddenly seemed much less important than figuring out how to reconnect with the girl who had taught him the meaning of true friendship. Marcus drove slowly through the rain toward his hotel. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. He could not stop thinking about Sarah. After 25 years, he had found his best childhood friend by pure chance. But the more he thought about it, the more troubled he became. Sarah was working double shifts as a nurse just to pay for her mother's medicine. She was driving an old car that might break down any day. Her clothes were simple and worn. She was clearly struggling with money, but she had refused his offer to help. She had even refused to let him pay her for fixing his expensive car. Meanwhile, Marcus was staying at the most expensive hotel in the city. His business meeting tomorrow would earn him millions more dollars. He owned 3 houses, 2 boats, and more cars than he could count. The watch on his wrist cost more than Sarah probably made in 6 months. How had their lives become so different? They had been best friends as children. They had played together, shared secrets, and promised to stay friends forever. But life had taken them down completely different paths. Marcus remembered that last summer when they were both 10 years old. Sarah's family had been struggling even then. Her father worked long hours at the auto repair shop, and her mother cleaned houses to make extra money. But Sarah had always been happy. She shared everything she had, even when she didn't have much. Marcus's family, on the other hand, had money, even back then. His father owned several businesses and his mother came from a wealthy family. Marcus had the newest toys, the best clothes, and went to the finest schools. But he had been lonely until he met Sarah. Sarah had taught him how to be a normal kid. She showed him how to catch fireflies, how to make mud pies, and how to climb the big oak tree in his grandmother's backyard. She never cared that his clothes were expensive or that his family had a big house. She liked him for who he was, not what he owned. When Marcus's family moved away, it was because his father got promoted to run the company's main office in another state. The move made his family even richer. Marcus went to elite private schools where all the other kids were from wealthy families too. He learned to act like them, talk like them, and think like them. Over the years, Marcus had become successful in business. He was smart and worked hard, but he also had advantages that most people never got. His family's money opened doors. Their connections got him the best jobs. Their influence helped him make profitable deals. Marcus had always told himself that he deserved his success because he worked for it. But tonight, seeing Sarah again, he realized how lucky he had been. What if his family had stayed poor? What If his father had gotten sick like Sarah's father, would Marcus have been strong enough to sacrifice his dreams to take care of his family like Sarah had done? When Marcus reached his hotel, he sat in his car for a long time before going inside. The hotel was fancy and expensive. The doorman rushed to open his car door. The desk clerk smiled and called him Mr. Thompson with great respect. Everyone treated him like he was very important because they knew he was rich. But Marcus felt empty inside. All his money and success seemed meaningless after meeting Sarah again. She had so little, but she seemed happier and more at peace than he had felt in years. Marcus went up to his room on the top floor. It was a huge suite with a beautiful view of the city. The furniture was elegant and expensive. There was a bottle of champagne waiting for him, along with fresh flowers and expensive chocolates. This was how he lived every day. He took out his phone and looked at Sarah's number. He wanted to call her, but what would he say? How could he explain that he was now one of the richest men in the state while she was struggling to pay her mother's medical bills? Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably getting home to her small apartment. She was probably checking on her sick mother, maybe giving her medicine and making sure she was comfortable for the night. Sarah would probably eat a simple dinner, then fall asleep exhausted from her long day of work. The next morning, Marcus woke up early. He had not slept well because he kept thinking about Sarah. He put on his most expensive suit and went down to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. The business meeting was important, but he could not focus on it. Marcus's phone rang. It was his business partner, David, calling about the meeting. "Are you ready for today?" David asked. "This deal will make us both very rich men." "We're already rich," Marcus said quietly. "What?" "I can barely hear you. Are you okay? You sound strange." "I'm fine," Marcus said. "I'll see you at the meeting." But Marcus was not fine. He felt confused and guilty. He had spent years building his wealth, but what was the point? He had no family. He had employees, but no real friends. He had money, but no one to share his life with. After breakfast, Marcus got in his car to drive to the business meeting. As he drove through the city, he passed the county hospital where Sarah worked. He slowed down and looked at the building. It was old and not very fancy. The parking lot was full of old cars like Sarah's Honda. This was where Sarah spent her days helping sick people, working hard for a small salary. Marcus made a sudden decision. Instead of going straight to his meeting, he parked his car and walked into the hospital. He told the woman at the front desk that he was looking for Sarah Williams. "She's working in the emergency room today," the woman said. "But she's very busy. Are you family?" "I'm an old friend," Marcus said. "I just wanted to see where she works." Marcus walked toward the emergency room but stopped before going in. Through the glass doors, he could see Sarah moving quickly between patients. She was checking on an elderly man, holding his hand and speaking to him gently. Then she rushed to help a mother with a crying baby. She looked tired, but she treated every person with kindness and care. A doctor came out of the emergency room and saw Marcus watching. "Are you looking for someone?" the doctor asked. "I'm watching Sarah Williams work," Marcus said. "She's an old friend." The doctor smiled. "Sarah is one of our best nurses. She works more hours than anyone else and she never complains. The patients love her because she really cares about them. We're lucky to have her." "Why does she work so many extra hours?" Marcus asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Her mother is very sick," the doctor said. "Sarah does everything she can to pay for her mother's treatment. She's a good daughter and a wonderful person." Marcus thanked the doctor and walked back to his car. Now he understood even more clearly how different their lives had become. Sarah was working herself to exhaustion to help others and care for her family. Marcus was about to make millions of dollars in a single business meeting. As Marcus drove to his meeting, he made another decision. He was going to find a way to help Sarah, whether she wanted his help or not. But he had to be careful. He knew Sarah was proud and independent. She would not accept charity, even from an old friend. Marcus needed a plan. He needed to find a way to help Sarah that would not hurt her feelings or make her feel like she owed him something. It would not be easy, but Marcus was determined to try. The business meeting could wait. Right now, the most important thing was figuring out how to help the girl who had once been his dearest friend and who had grown up to be one of the most caring people he had ever known. Marcus arrived at his business meeting 30 minutes late. His mind was not focused on the deal that would make him millions of dollars. All he could think about was Sarah working in that busy hospital, taking care of sick people while worrying about her mother's medical bills. The meeting was held in a fancy office building downtown. Marcus's business partner David was waiting for him with 3 other wealthy investors. They were discussing a plan to buy several technology companies and merge them together. The deal would be worth $50 million. "Marcus, finally," David said when Marcus walked into the conference room. "We were starting to worry about you. This is the biggest deal of our careers." Marcus sat down at the polished wooden table, but his heart was not in the meeting. He listened as the other men talked about profit margins, stock prices, and market strategies. These were things that had excited him before, but today they seemed unimportant. "Marcus, you seem distracted," said one of the investors. "Are you having second thoughts about this deal?" "No," Marcus said quickly. "I'm just thinking about something else." The meeting lasted for 3 hours. Marcus signed all the papers and agreed to the deal, but he felt like he was watching someone else's life. When it was over, he had earned more money in one morning than Sarah would make in 10 years of working at the hospital. After the meeting, Marcus drove around the city for hours. He was trying to decide what to do about Sarah. He wanted to help her, but he knew she would refuse his money. She was too proud and independent to accept what she would see as charity. Finally, Marcus had an idea. He would not offer Sarah money directly. Instead, he would find other ways to help her and her mother, ways that would not make Sarah feel like she owed him anything. That evening, Marcus called Sarah. She sounded tired when she answered the phone. "Hi, Marcus," Sarah said. "How was your business meeting?" "It went well," Marcus said. "Sarah, I was wondering if we could meet for coffee tomorrow. I'd like to catch up more. There are things I want to tell you about my life." Sarah hesitated. "I have to work tomorrow, but I have a break at 2 o'clock. There's a small coffee shop near the hospital called Lily's Cafe. Do you know it?" "I'll find it," Marcus said. "I'll see you there at 2. The next day, Marcus arrived at Lily's Cafe early. It was a simple place with old tables and chairs. The coffee was cheap, and most of the customers looked like they worked at nearby businesses or the hospital. This was very different from the expensive restaurants where Marcus usually ate. Sarah arrived exactly at 2 o'clock, still wearing her nurse uniform. She looked tired but smiled when she saw Marcus. "I only have 30 minutes, Sarah said, sitting down across from him. "The emergency room is very busy today." Marcus had practiced what he wanted to say, but now that Sarah was sitting in front of him, he felt nervous. How do you tell an old friend that you're extremely wealthy when they're struggling to pay for basic needs? "Sarah," Marcus began carefully, "I haven't been completely honest with you about my life." Sarah looked confused. "What do you mean?" "When I said I went into business and things worked out well for me, I didn't explain how well. Sarah, I'm very wealthy." "Very wealthy." Sarah stared at him. "What do you mean by very wealthy?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I mean, I have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. The business meeting yesterday was worth $50 million. I own companies, real estate, and investments all over the country." Sarah's face went pale. She put down her coffee cup and looked at Marcus like she was seeing him for the first time. "You're a millionaire?" she asked quietly. "Many times over," Marcus admitted. "I'm one of the richest people in the state." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Marcus could see her, processing this information. Finally, she spoke. "Why didn't you tell me this when we met on the highway?" "Because I was embarrassed," Marcus said honestly. "Here you were, working double shifts to pay for your mother's medicine, and I have more money than I know what to do with. I felt guilty." "Guilty about being successful?" Sarah asked. "Guilty about being so lucky while you've had to struggle so much," Marcus explained. "Sarah, we both started from the same place. We were both kids playing in my grandmother's backyard, but our lives went in completely different directions." Sarah looked down at her hands. The simple friendship ring caught the light from the cafe window. "I'm happy for your success, Marcus," she said finally. "But I hope you didn't tell me this because you think I need your pity." "It's not pity," Marcus said quickly. "Sarah, you're the strongest, most caring person I know. You've sacrificed everything for your family. You help strangers on rainy highways. You work exhausting hours to take care of sick people. I have money, but you have something much more valuable. You have character." "Money is not everything," Sarah agreed, "but it sure makes life easier." Marcus leaned forward. "That's exactly why I want to help you. Not because I pity you, but because I care about you. You're my oldest friend and you deserve to have an easier life." Sarah shook her head. "Marcus, I appreciate the thought, but I can't take your money. It wouldn't be right." "What if it wasn't just about money?" Marcus asked. "What if I told you that helping you would actually help me too?" "I don't understand." Marcus had been thinking about this all night. "Sarah, I've been wealthy for years, but I've never felt truly happy or fulfilled. I spend my money on things I don't need. I live in a big house by myself. I have employees, but no real friends. Meeting you again made me realize what's been missing from my life." "What's that?" "Purpose," Marcus said. "You have a purpose. You help people every day. You make a real difference in the world. I just make money." Sarah listened carefully as Marcus continued. "I want to use my money to help people the way you do, but I don't know how to start. I've been rich for so long that I've lost touch with what regular people need." "You want me to teach you how to help people?" Sarah asked. "I want us to work together," Marcus said. "I have resources, and you have knowledge and experience. Together, we could help a lot of families who are struggling like yours." Sarah was quiet again, thinking about Marcus's words. "Even if I agreed to something like that," she said slowly, "it still wouldn't solve my mother's immediate medical needs." "What if I told you I've already started helping?" Marcus said gently. Sarah looked alarmed. "What do you mean?" "Yesterday, after I saw you at the hospital, I did some research. I found out who your mother's doctor is. I called the hospital's billing department and paid off all of your mother's medical bills. Past, present, and future." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, you can't do that. I can't let you." "It's already done," Marcus said softly. "And Sarah, it cost me less than I made in 1 hour during yesterday's business meeting. For me, it was easy. For you, it changes everything." Sarah put her head in her hands. Marcus could see that she was crying. "Sarah, please don't be upset. I know you're proud, but—" "I'm not upset," Sarah said, looking up with tears in her eyes. "I'm grateful, and terrified, and confused. I don't know how to accept such a huge gift." "You don't have to accept it as a gift," Marcus said. "Accept it as an investment." "An investment in what?" "In our friendship. In the work we're going to do together to help other people. In the future we're going to build." Sarah wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Marcus, this is all happening so fast. I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," Marcus said. "But, Sarah, please know that helping you doesn't make me feel powerful or superior. It makes me feel like I'm finally using my wealth for something that matters." Sarah looked at the ring on her finger, the same ring Marcus had given her 25 years ago. "You gave me this ring when we were children," she said. "You told me it was so I would remember our friendship. I remember. I've worn it every day since then. It reminded me that there are good people in the world even when times were hard." Marcus nodded. "Maybe," Sarah said slowly. "This is why we found each other again. Maybe we're supposed to help each other now, just like we did when we were kids." "Maybe we are," Marcus agreed. Sarah looked at her watch. "I have to get back to work. But Marcus, can we meet again tomorrow? I want to hear more about your ideas for helping people." "Of course," Marcus said, feeling hopeful for the first time in years. As Sarah walked back to the hospital, Marcus sat in the cafe thinking about how his life was about to change. He had finally found a way to use his wealth that would bring him real happiness. and he had found his way back to the one person who had always seen the best in him. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the grand ballroom of the city's most expensive hotel. She was wearing a beautiful blue dress that Marcus had insisted on buying for her. Tonight was the opening celebration for the Thompson Williams Foundation, the charity organization that she and Marcus had created together. Sarah looked around the room at all the wealthy people who had come to support their foundation. A year ago, she could never have imagined being in a place like this. Back then, she was working double shifts just to pay for her mother's medicine. Now her mother was healthy and happy, receiving the best medical care money could buy. Marcus walked over to Sarah, looking handsome in his expensive black suit. But Sarah had learned that underneath all his wealth, he was still the same kind boy she had known as a child. "Are you ready for your speech?" Marcus asked. Sarah nodded, though she felt nervous. She was not used to speaking in front of rich and important people. But Marcus had helped her practice, and she knew their message was important. The foundation had already helped dozens of families in just 6 months. They paid for medical treatments, helped people fix their cars so they could get to work, and gave scholarships to students who could not afford college. Sarah used her experience as a nurse to identify families who really needed help, and Marcus used his money and business connections to provide that help quickly. "Ladies and gentlemen," the hotel manager announced, "please welcome the founders of the Thompson Williams Foundation, Mr. Marcus Thompson and Miss Sarah Williams." Sarah and Marcus walked to the front of the room together. Sarah felt amazed by how much her life had changed. She was no longer working exhausting shifts at the hospital. Instead, she was working full-time for the foundation, visiting families, understanding their needs, and finding ways to help them. Marcus spoke first. "Thank you all for coming tonight. 6 months ago, I was a wealthy businessman who had lost sight of what really mattered in life. Then I met someone who reminded me that true success is not about how much money you have, but about how much good you do with it." He turned to look at Sarah. "Sarah Williams is the most generous person I know. She has taught me that kindness is more valuable than money, and that helping others is the only way to find real happiness." Now it was Sarah's turn to speak. She had been nervous about this moment, but when she looked out at the crowd, she thought about all the families they had already helped. "When I was a child," Sarah began, "my father taught me that we should always help others when we can. He said that helping people is not about having a lot of money. It's about having a good heart." The crowd listened carefully as Sarah told them about some of the families the foundation had helped. There was Mrs. Rodriguez, whose husband needed expensive heart surgery. There was young Tommy Johnson, who was brilliant at math but could not afford to go to college. There was the Miller family, whose house had burned down and who had nowhere to live. "We helped all of these families," Sarah said, "not because we felt sorry for them, but because we believe that everyone deserves a chance to live a good life. When we help others, we make our whole community stronger." Sarah looked at Marcus and smiled. "Marcus has taught me that having money is not something to be ashamed of, as long as you use it to help others. And I hope I have taught him that the best way to help people is to listen to them and understand what they really need." After the speeches, people came up to Sarah and Marcus to ask questions about the foundation and to offer their support. Many wealthy people in the city had decided to donate money to help with their work. Later that evening, after all the guests had gone home, Sarah and Marcus sat together in the hotel's quiet garden. Sarah was tired but happy. "Do you ever regret leaving your job at the hospital?" Marcus asked. "Sometimes I miss working directly with patients," Sarah said honestly. "But I realize that through the foundation, I can help even more people. Before I could only help the patients who came to the emergency room. Now we can help entire families before they even get sick." Marcus nodded. "You know, meeting you again changed my whole life. I used to think that making money was the most important thing. Now I understand that using money to help others is what makes life meaningful." Sarah touched the friendship ring that she still wore every day. "Do you think we would have found each other again if your car hadn't broken down?" "That night? I don't know," Marcus said, "but I'm grateful that it did. Sometimes I think that everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen." 3 months later, Sarah was visiting the Johnson family to check on young Tommy's progress in college. Tommy was studying engineering and getting excellent grades. His younger sister was also doing well in school, and their mother had found a better job. "Ms. Williams," Tommy's mother said, "I don't know how to thank you and Mr. Thompson. Tommy's scholarship changed our whole family's future." "You don't need to thank us," Sarah said. "Just promise me that when Tommy becomes a successful engineer, he'll help other young people who need a chance." "He will," Mrs. Johnson promised. "He talks about it all the time." That evening, Sarah drove to Marcus's house for dinner. Marcus had moved from his huge mansion to a smaller, more comfortable home. He said he was happier in a place that felt like a real home instead of a museum. They were planning their wedding for the following spring. It had taken them a year to realize that their childhood friendship had grown into something deeper. Marcus had proposed to Sarah in the same garden where his grandmother used to grow flowers, the place where they had played as children. Sarah's mother was completely healthy now, thanks to the excellent medical care that Marcus had arranged. She lived in a beautiful apartment near Sarah and spent her days volunteering at a senior center. She often told people that she was proud of her daughter for helping so many families. "I have some good news," Marcus told Sarah over dinner. 3. More wealthy families have decided to start their own foundations, copying what we've done. Our idea is spreading to other cities. Sarah smiled. "That's wonderful. The more people who help others, the better." "Also," Marcus said, "the hospital called today. They want to offer you a part-time position as a consultant. You would help them identify patients who need extra financial assistance." "That sounds perfect," Sarah said. "I miss working at the hospital sometimes. This way, I can do both jobs." Marcus reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. The engagement ring he had given her sparkled next to the simple friendship ring she had never taken off. "Sarah," Marcus said, "do you remember what you told me that night when you fixed my car? You said that helping others was just the right thing to do. I remember. You changed my life by teaching me that lesson. You helped me understand that money is only valuable when you use it to make other people's lives better." Sarah squeezed his hand. "And you taught me that accepting help is not a sign of weakness. Sometimes we need to let others help us so that we can help even more people." 1 year later, Sarah and Marcus were married in a simple ceremony in the garden behind his grandmother's old house on Maple Street. The whole neighborhood came to celebrate with them. Many of the families they had helped through their foundation were there too. During the ceremony, the pastor talked about how their love story was really a story about kindness and second chances. He said that when two people use their love to help others, they create something beautiful that lasts forever. After the wedding, Sarah and Marcus continued their work with the foundation. They helped hundreds of families over the years. They also had 2 children of their own, who grew up understanding that the most important thing in life is to help others whenever you can. Sarah never forgot the lesson her father had taught her about helping people. And Marcus never forgot how Sarah had stopped on a rainy highway to help a stranger, not knowing that this act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. The friendship ring that had brought them back together became a symbol of their love and their commitment to helping others. They often told people that the best treasures in life are not things you can buy, but the relationships you build and the good you do for others. Their story became famous in their city as an example of how one act of kindness can create a ripple effect that changes many lives. Sarah and Marcus proved that when good people work together, they can make the world a better place for everyone.